Kids are fascinated by steering wheels, and I've been obsessed with this one. In this video, I'll tell you why. So I've been obsessed with this steering wheel and the steering column and the steering box on this Series 1. And you know, an obsession is usually not a healthy thing. And I can confirm that it's not healthy, because the end result and the decisions I've got now are a big problem. And it's because of this obsession with this steering column. But let me first explain how this whole story came about. Hi, welcome back to my channel, and thanks so much for watching. In the episode today, I'm going to look at the steering column insert which goes into the middle of the Series 1 steering column. So in the last episode I looked at putting together the steering column, but in this one I want to look at the actual central column that goes inside in the middle of the steering column, and then the hooter and dipswitch assembly which goes onto the top of that and sits then on the steering wheel. So this has been quite complicated to work this out. The manual's not very specific about it. So anyway, I've worked out how to do it, and I'm going to do a specific video just on actually how to assemble this whole unit with all of the little parts together and how it fits together. So let's get into that. The first task was to get everything together, and it had taken me quite a few months to assemble everything and find everything. The main part was the central hooter section, which I had gotten from Charlesworth Mouldings in the UK. I'll drop a link in the description below. And then the first task was to put the connectors onto the wiring so that I could get it connected. And yeah, stay tuned and I'll show you exactly how I got my steering wheel from that disastrous broken look to a brand new look. So that'll be in towards the end, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so this is the unit that you've got. So you get this is the main hooter. It looks similar to the other normal hooter, except it's got this hole here for the dip switch, and then you get this switch, and you've got this is the switch mechanism, and then this is the hooter part with the spring on, and then you've got this which holds on the hooter. So let's look at this part first. So the first thing is to put this little assembly in here. So it's got this little spring here which allows it to switch backwards and forth. So you need to make sure that the spring's in there and the little rod is inside that, because it switches across from one side to the other side. You'll see once it's fitted. So that goes in there like that, and then this fits in to that hole. Just got to make sure that you get this inside here. It goes in like that. And then the dip switch, this switch goes in from this side, and it's got a little locating slot there. So you push that all the way in, and then when you turn this, that's how it works. So now the dip is on, and then when you switch it the other way, it's off and it's moved to the other side. Okay, and that's secured in place with this nut. I'm just going to put a little bit of Loctite on there. this little screw just holds this whole assembly onto the hooter. Okay, it's tight. Then the hooter itself goes on. It's got the spring which sits on the top here, and that then goes on the top. So it's pushing like that onto this side, and then it connects onto this. So you've got this little insulator here, and then this is where the connection goes on for the wire. So I'm actually going to connect the hooter wire now. The hooter wire is this. It's the brown and green wire. I'll just bend this lug so that it can get an angle there. There we go. Put it Loctite on here again. This is the contact plate for the hooter, which goes over here, except now I should have put it on before I put the wire on, so I just remembered to do that. So I'll just take this off. Okay, so there's a locating lug here which needs to sit inside the housing. So just make sure you get it the right way around. Then you can put this back on. Okay, then these connections here, so blue which goes on here is the power, and then the white goes onto this terminal, and then the red goes onto this terminal. So the white is the dip wire, so that's dip on, and then the red is for bright, so that's when dips are off. So that's how those get connected onto those terminals. So the next part was to put the wiring loom through the control tube, and that goes all the way down through the bottom and eventually comes out at the bottom of the steering column, and then gets connected up to the fuse box, and those are the cables or the wires for the hooter and for the dip switch. Okay, then these posts go on here. Just take that off there. So these screw on here, and then this is the earth for the hooter, so that needs to connect to one of these posts. So whichever one's going to be the closest. So it looks like getting these wires on here is not very easy. So there's not much space. If this post goes on here. Oh, it's about that much. Okay, so we're going to put this one onto this post over here. Okay, there we go. I think that's going to work. That goes on there. So now we need to put these on. So these are the spacers and the insulators. And they sit between these washers. I've put the ones with the shoulders on the bottom or the top. Okay, so that is the installation now. So now this can go into through the steering wheel and into the steering column. After spending all those years outside, the steering wheel was pretty tired and the outside had come off, but the rest of the wheel was in pretty good condition, so I could get it restored. And I took it to Dave, who works with Charles, and Charles had also done my firewall and my chassis, and they do a fantastic job restoring these steering wheels.
In prime, they're ready for top coat.
They're like in progress, eh?
Yeah, they're ready for top coat.
Yeah.
And they got 2, this will be 3 in ready for primer. I'm putting a Chevy.
So this is my steering wheel that Dave did. Yeah, luckily the splines were in pretty good condition. So that's the main thing. So the splines and you can see the body is in quite good condition. So that was good. And then but the outer area was really broken. So that's what they redid now. And I mean it looks as good as new. It's really, really good, eh? So this looks fantastic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to putting this on. It's going to look awesome. So the way that it works is that this part actually is fixed and it doesn't move, and then the steering wheel just rotates around it, and this needs to be at the bottom like that, and the end fits at the bottom through the steering column. So now we can fit it. I can fit it onto the steering column. So let's see how that looks. Since the day that I'd taken the steering wheel off, I'd been waiting to do this, and so it was immensely rewarding putting this thing back together and finally getting these wires through, and then looking and seeing what the finished product was going to look like. I couldn't finish it off because there's still a couple of other things I need to put onto the steering column before I tighten it up, so we'll leave that for later. Okay, so after all of that, I've got the steering column in, it's all done. I'm so excited to get this thing going. And so what I'm doing now is getting the wheels sorted out, deciding which wheels I want to, or get my wheels on so I can get the chassis moving. And to do that, I need to decide which tires to get. And to do that, I need to know which tire size. And that's where the problem comes. Because I had decided, look, I want to put 750 16s on, which is a very common size. It's normal for these types, for Land Rovers. And they're fairly easily available, and I can get decent tires at a decent price, and I like the look of them. But this 107 should be fitted with 7 by 16 tires. And that is obviously because of the gearing and usually because of the engine. So I've got a 2 1/4 engine, no problem, that can power the bigger wheels. But the problem then is this steering column that I've got, which is the early worm and nut type. And besides it's not being, having it doesn't have as low a ratio as the later one has, it's also not as strong as the later one. And so if I'm going to put bigger wheels on, not only is it going to make the steering even harder, but it's also going to potentially allow it to break and put more stress onto it. And so, it's such a tough thing now. I've spent a fortune fixing this thing, and I'm so excited to put it on and keep it so original. But the reality is it's just going to be a problem, because to find 7 by 16 tires or 716 tires is really difficult, and they're not common, and you don't have a lot of selection and a lot of choice. And so now I sit with that decision. So I don't know if you've done anything on one of these vehicles and made a call like this, and which way you would go, but I'd be interested to know what you think. I haven't made a decision yet. It can go either way, but I'm seriously considering both options. One of them is heartbreaking after spending all the time on the steering box, and then I have to find a new steering box as well. So that's another story. Anyway, so that's the way these things go. So I now have a fully functional worm and nut steering box, reconditioned, lovely, ready to use, and I've got a problem with the tires. So let me know in the comments what you think. If you have any ideas, any advice, I'd appreciate it. And till next time, thanks for watching, and cheers.